Today I'm going to demonstrate satin stitch, which is typically used for filling an area of any shape, like you see in this kind of wonky rectangle that's already been filled in with satin stitch. The fewer threads you use, the smoother the result will be. So I typically do satin stitch with one strand, but today I'm going to use 2 strands just to make things go quicker on video. But to give you an idea, satin strand can be used to fill in an entire hoop's worth of pattern in just small sections at a time, or it can be used for just a particular spot, like the center. This yellow circle in the center here is 1 strand satin stitch. It can be used also to make any shape, including unusual shapes, like these kind of botanical plant kind of geometric shapes. Or the kind of shapes that you see here, from the circle in the center to these irregular shapes radiating out from it, and these at the bottom as well. So you can really do almost anything with satin stitch, and it's a really simple stitch because it's basically like putting a bunch of straight stitches side by side, just looping through your fabric. It's really helpful to think first about the direction that you want your stitches to go in, and give yourself some guiding lines, especially for things like circles where it's really easy to stitch them in a way that looks squashed at the end. So what I like to do is, come up from behind like usual. And instead of starting at one side and going all the way over, you can see that I am kind of using my thread to pull a line across just to give me a sense of where I want to stitch to. And I'm going to do that a couple of times on this circle. I'm putting my needle either just outside of or just on the line of the circle, and I'm using the thread to kind of guide my way across. I'm always coming up near me, and then I'm always coming down on the far side. You can do it the opposite way, whatever's comfortable for you, or you can do it left to right. Just be consistent in what side you come up on and what side you come down on. And I am creating these guidelines just to try to help me stay straighter when I do satin stitch, because that is one of the challenges of having your stitches feel nice and smooth at the end. So once I have a few guidelines in place, then I work through, and you can divide that area into smaller pieces if you like, or you can just start next to one of those stitches. And as you start doing them, if you see that some of your stitches are going a little astray from where you would like, you can kind of manhandle them a little bit. Nudge them back into place as you put one next to it, and it will naturally start to kind of fill in and scoot them over until you end up with a nice smooth area. And it doesn't matter which way you're working here, left to right or right to left. I typically do stitch from left to right, but with satin stitch, it's okay if you want to hop around a bit to give yourself more guiding lines. And it's great to kind of take a look back after you've done some and say, okay, are these smooth? Am I going as far out as I need to? And I will be honest, this is not my best stitching work, because in order to show you what's happening on camera without having my head in the way, I can't see the edges of the circle the way that I would if I was stitching this for real. But hopefully you see what I'm talking about, that giving you some guidelines or direction lines first is really helpful, and that you're just always stitching in the same direction, whether it's coming up on the near side, up on the far side, or going side by side, and you keep working until you get all of your stitches very evenly next to each other so that the whole area feels filled in and smooth. Keeping the tension right in satin stitch can be a challenge. To not pull your thread too tight that you end up with a little pucker here, which sometimes will steam out nicely and sometimes won't. but to also be able to keep your stitches tight enough that they will feel nice and smooth when you run your finger across them at the end, which is always a good goal for satin stitch. So I will finish this out. For the sake of time, I'll go ahead and stop here. And that's it for satin stitch. Thanks for watching.